I want to talk about Eddington, okay? I've been meaning to want to talk about it. Now, I watched Eddington a few days ago. I am baffled at why the movie is as controversial as it is. And then I realized I went to the reviews on Letterboxd, and I saw there were a lot of fucking libtards unironically upset that the movie portrayed the BLM protesters for being exactly like how they were, and kind of not even mocking or making fun of them, but just I think it was an extremely accurate, neutral representation of how leftists were in 2020. I don't think it was like a caricature. I don't think it was over the top. I think there's many people that could attest that's actually how it fucking was. And the fact that this was presented in such like a raw, unbiased way is what upset them, because he held up a mirror to their face unironically and it was like, this is what you guys looked like and this is what you were. So they were unironically upset because of the self-awareness that was imposed upon them by that film, and that's why it was controversial. I want to say it's a really stupid controversy, and I'm not interested in going further into detail about it because it's not deep and it's not profound at all. The movie deserves to be examined on a deeper level than the controversy it generated amongst retarded leftists. So when I do movie reviews, I typically like to break them down with, first the superficial political meaning and the ideological. I'll be the Soviet censor and talk about the ideological value of the film and what are the intentions of the director and where does it stand politically, what's the message, and then I'll get more into the kind of deeper analysis that actually matters. So I was surprised at the backlash because I think it's very evident that Ari Aster, it's a left-leaning film. In the conventional sense, even left liberal, I would even say standard Democrat liberal framing for this film, because the film is basically pointing out the irony, I guess, that among it's a devastating critique of the conspiraboomer right and the MAGA movement, I think, because basically it's trying to say that amidst buying into all of these kooky conspiracy theories, which they include, skepticism over the mRNA vaccine in the film, they treat this as a kind of, ironically, as fulfilling the real plans of the real powers that be all along. And that's the irony. Another standard trope, which I didn't find very impressive, but which is very clearly the intention of Ari Aster to communicate, was like, all this time that you're looking for pedophile rings and human trafficking rings, but it was really at home where the real pedophile is. So this woman and her mother are like researching, they're getting into a conspiraboomer rabbit hole about QAnon stuff, I guess, and child trafficking. And Ari Aster was trying to say this was a psychological coping mechanism for the fact that they were traumatic victims of abuse from within the house. So that was the political messaging of the film wasn't right-wing. It wasn't even a critique of leftism. It was definitely coming from the liberal left and the Democrats. It was not like a very intentionally red pill film, if you want to put it that way. But Ari Aster is a very brilliant filmmaker. I will say that. He's very brilliant. And his what was his first horror film that he got famous for? Not Midsummer, the one before then. Can you remind me what it's called? Hereditary, yes. Hereditary and Midsummer share in common. I think he is a kind of neo-formalist. Now, many people associate formalism with abstract art, like Malevich's Black Square. Formalism is not about abstraction, per se. Formalism is just about attempting to articulate content purely through the purity of forms and formal interrelations and formal representations and so on and so on, and spaces and the whole point of kind of neo-formalism for Ari Aster, I think, is that for him the meaning is surface level. The meaning is simultaneously profoundly occult, but also inherent in the very structure and form of how it's being presented. Like, this was true in Hereditary for reasons I probably couldn't explain off the top of my head because I forgot about that film a lot, but also Midsommar. Midsommar, you know, what's the deep secret for Midsommar? Well, there is none. The deep secret for Midsommar is that this kind of cult in Sweden or whatever, it was all of its elaborate social rituals and beliefs and superstitions and so on and so on. There's no deeper meaning behind them. They served, one of the reasons the film was kind of so brilliant and interesting was that it's just like it's like this. This was my interpretation, at least. It was a kind of attempt to represent an how would I even put this? An autonomous social principle at play, and that is the horror in Midsommar. It's the fact that you have this social being, this social organism, which is this cult or this community, which very harmoniously and eloquently reproduces itself through a strictly immanent logic inherent to the form of the community itself. There's no need for a conspiracy. There's no need for a kind of patriarch who's pulling the strings. There's no need for any kind of like deeper intervention by some foreign body of some kind. It's a purely immanent structure of the you know, in the most superficial sense of the word, social form of the community. And Ari Aster, he brilliantly depicts this as a kind of enclosure, a kind of suffocation, and a horrifying thing. The fact that there's this autonomous social principle at play that is just as natural and organic and seamless as the relation of the sun, you know, to the world, that is for him horrifying, because it's like you are out in the open in front under the sun, and yet there's an enclosure, and the enclosure is the fact that there is no room and there's no space for logos, for speech, for any kind of incision and intervention into the seamless flow of things. And this is a common theme, I think, for Ari Aster. That was true for Hereditary as well. The horrific reality of a kind of repressed logos, a silence that dwells and kind of bears witness to this kind of more wild integrity and self-sameness of form. Maybe I'm stupid for my analysis, and it's a kind of overthinking, and it's not, it's stupid and incoherent. I don't know. It makes sense to me. It's a closed system. Yeah, sure, it's a closed system, but typically closed systems are depicted as the product of a kind of conspiracy or a central command of control imposing the closedness. But I think for Ari Aster, the closed system of the form actually is a kind of, has an organic dimension to it, and has an autonomous dimension to it, and that for him is horrifying. I think Ari Aster is not a tanky. I think he's a kind of liberal who's afraid of AI, and he's afraid of the new rise of a mass subject, frankly, and the way society is going. I think it's a kind of liberal intelligentsia who is witnessing the horror of the Trump era. That's how I interpret Ari Aster. Nonetheless, although I interpret profoundly problematic, ideological, political, whatever, he's very brilliant. I loved Midsommar. He's a good filmmaker. Yeah, the demon, it lies in the form. Okay, so I think that the same thing is true in Eddington. I think that in Eddington, many people are scratching their heads about the conspiracy in it. You know, Bryce, what's up? Like, for example, who's behind the Antifa super soldiers? Who's behind the data center and stuff? And was it all a conspiracy? I think that's not the point. The point was, almost in a kind of autonomously seamless way, society is becoming dominated by the information age and social media and a new way of forming consciousness, if you will. And that can take the form of the BLM thing in 2020, or it can take the form of conspiraboomer stuff. But I think Ari's message in the film, if any, is mainly that while that is happening, you get what you pay for. Like, it doesn't matter what content it is. It can be like left coded or right coded. But ultimately, what this actually is the data center. It's a new cybernetic form of consciousness that is taking root in society as a consequence of the proliferation of communications and information technology, which is, which is supplanting more traditional means of how people used to socialize and interact. Maybe on account of their isolation, maybe on account of something else, it doesn't matter. And so the data center is at the conclusion of the film, I think, because Ari is basically, it's more like, this is the truth of the whole thing. It's just raw data for these algorithms. There's no deeper meaning behind it. There's no deeper conspiracy. It's all the horror in the film is that all these people are like the lady at the end who's wheeling around the sheriff. They have this, they think deep down, they think that they're partaking in this new consciousness, all these conspiracy theories, all this woke stuff with BLM. By the way, the common theme is like you're awakening. It's a new kind of consciousness. It's kind of Gnosticism, whatever. But in reality, they all conform to the form of something much more blind, much more autonomous, much more devoid of subjectivity, much more objective, I should rather say. In this sense, you can call Ari Aster a kind of formalist materialist. He is, I think he's a formalist materialist. As a Soviet censor, I issue a censorial stamp on his films because they're guilty of A, bourgeois formalism, and B, mechanical materialism. Sorry, I'm just kidding. They're great films. You should watch them. Eddington is okay. Maybe Logo and other people I respect deeply and ABC won't like my interpretation, but I'm not trying to contradict theirs. I'm just trying to not be redundant because I agree with their analysis wholeheartedly. I'm just trying to insert my 2 cents as well. Like, in addition to all that, this is what I think as well. But that also, see, even though he's a liberal and he has these bad intentions, I think that Eddington inadvertently creates a nice kind of cognitive mapping of 2020 and our way of making sense of it. And this is what I like about films. They're like maps. You can maneuver them. I always do this. One of the ways I like talking about films is not just the director's intentions and what the message is supposed to be. It's more like, what kind of world have you built? And how can we explore this world and create counterfactuals and talk about how if we just rearrange it a little bit, it can be a completely different meaning. I like mutilating the imagined worlds within films so that they give way to a different kind of message. I like thinking about, a Star Wars film where Darth Vader is the good guy and all this. That's the most stupid, childish example, by the way, but this is how I approach all films. I don't judge the quality of film or TV based on what it is. I judge it based on what kind of world, What kind of map of our symbolic order does it give expression to? How comprehensive is its ability to signify and evoke our world? You know, I'm a realist, the real world, right? So I'm a socialist realist, okay? And with respect to that, Eddington is profound and it's very good. And that's where logos analysis, I think, holds a lot of water. I think that it does inadvertently reveal a lot in terms of the truth about 2020 and our current reality very profoundly in ways that other forms of cinema have not and cannot. So I totally agree with logos analysis. I am giving the most negative, ideologically pessimistic take on Eddington because it's what I uniquely observed, I guess. Logo is correct in his own right. ABC, I think, is coming up with a large... I keep up with these things. I think he said he's going to write a really long essay and review, and I look forward to that, actually. Because I don't even think that I have the best take ever. I think that this is just my immediate thoughts. And the cowboy... I remember Logo talked about the cowboy Indian aspect. Again, the other thing that's super interesting about the film that a lot of people point out is that it's a Western. It's a neo-Western. And what I can say about that is true, but not because of where its setting is, but because its setting, its themes, its superficial aspects, in addition to the fact that there's a new frontier. Every Western is about the Wild West and the frontier. Eddington is about the Wild West and the new frontier of this new type of consciousness that accompanied the cybernetic form of civilization after 2020, when everyone was isolated physically. And that in and of itself is a Wild West. It is. It's an objective. You saw it. BLM protesters running around, and that is so it qualifies as a Western to me because of that. And Eddington is very interesting in other ways as well, because the Cowboys and Indians aspect is very profound on a different dimension, though, because, you know, the part of the forum, I guess, Ari Aster is fleshing out is, how does this new space of existence, this new way socialization is happening through information, the absolute dominance of information, how does that relate to things that are basic, like disputes over land, the question of sovereignty over land? I think that's where Ari Aster probably had the most profound intentions. The relationship between the data centers and the land and the environment. I mean, that's a real thing going on. I was in Texas at one of the, thanks to Comrade Maddie, she brought us to some natural reserve, and we were educated about, you know, how the data centers and that are used for AI and other things, how they're interfacing with water and the environment, and how they're ecologically unsustainable. And you know, this is. But what was interesting about Ari Aster is that there was this dimension of how tribal sovereignty is being exploited to, you know, facilitate a new dominion over land that is very much modern and very much in keeping with the system. And it's like, it is, Logo's take is so interesting, because it's like, it's a critique of land back. If you look at it that way in the film, they're like, okay, land back in Canada appears to be just this innocent, give the land back to natives and give it back. But like, the real purpose is to just undermine laws in place, or regulations in place, I should rather say, and allow for the most modern, the most nefarious agenda of the ruling class to be implemented through the control of land. And they're selling it to the woke people as like restoration of tribal indigenous sovereignty and custodianship over the land. That's how they're selling it. But in reality, it's a new nefarious relationship between abstract territory in space, you know, and industry, you know. So this being the tech industry, so that is and also an interesting that's also a very interesting angle, you know. So what can I say, guys? One's if you like my review of Eddington. It was a good film. It was a good film. It was very good. Is he the next great American filmmaker? I don't know about that, but he's definitely good. I respect him as a filmmaker. I do. I don't know if I mean, I don't like his ideological, but he's a good filmmaker. He's good at what he does. What can I say? Austin Butler's character, evil is sentimental. Maybe I'm too stupid to maybe I'm too stupid to get it because I think my superficial interpretation, which but was not well thought out, it's just kind of on the spot, would be that it's a way to absolve yourself of responsibility and your culpability in the world, and thereby, you know, you do evil things again, almost autonomously, but there's a silence where you're just not taking responsibility, and it affects you through the expression of sentiment. That's my interpretation. And I don't consider it very profound, but it's just my offhand interpretation. I think for Ari Aster, my way of reading or seeing his films is there's a seamlessness of the self-sameness of form being what it is, and that is precisely where the dimension of horror lies, because in that self-sameness, can I be anti-Semitic? In that self-sameness, there's a silence, and it's a silence of the logos. Okay, I will be anti-Semitic. Ari Aster is Jewish, I think. So that's a huge factor here. Huge. And because theologically, Moses, when he was during Revelation in the burning bush, God said, I am what I am. And it's this, again, this tautological self-sameness. Out of this derives the word. This is the sublime, right? But is the response of Moses purely a silent horror in the midst of the sublime? Or does it give him the articulation, the courage of articulating the word of God? Well, it does. He does articulate the word of God. And I think Ari kind of depicts the burning bush without the articulation into speech. So it's a silent horror of the sublime. That's a rightoid critique. It's a Jewish movie. Well, I'm one of the refined anti-Semites, and I guess anti-Semite means just noticing, where I can actually understand the Jewish perspective theologically and spiritually and stuff, and how that reflects in art. And it's not good or bad to me. It's just a way... Like, I think the same of Muslim film directors and Christian and Catholic especially. I mean, what are those films? Like the ones about the nun? The Nun? Where does that come from? The data center layout is that of a church. Super interesting. I don't know. I see Ari Aster's film and I'm thinking this is a Jewish perspective. For sure. That doesn't mean it's like worthy of dismissal, by the way, at all. It just means like I do notice these things. Of course, I'm the most paranoid person in the world. I notice when people. I just read I read his Wikipedia to make sure I'm not lying about that. I notice the religious and there's always a theological and religious significance. I think everything in art, for sure. I'm just not a fucking retard who dehumanizes Jews. Like, oh, it's a Jewish film. It's like, okay, that's their take on reality. Like that, if you should at least try to understand it if you want to critique it. See, like, who's the smart Christian guy? J. G. K. Chesterton. Is that his name? Let me see if I'm saying it correctly. Chesterton. Yes, G. K. Chesterton. Sorry, so much weird word. G. K. Chesterton. It's hard to say. It's like a onomatopoeia. The smart critics of Judaism are not Fuentes Groyper Jew mongers. They're not these one syllable retards who scream. That's not how it works, buddy. You know. The thing is, we're all a little bit Jewish. I'm Kizilbosh. I'm a Elavi. I don't believe in this divisions. I'm a Sufi. I believe I'm a Sufi Freemason. I think we're all a little bit Jewish. I think we're all a little bit Christian. And God forbid, I think we're all a little bit Muslim too. I think we're a little bit of everything. We're a little bit of Buddhist and Hindu and everything. And I guess that's a Freemason view. But we invented it first, the Kizilbosh. What can I say? In the third world where I come from, like Fuentes said, we had many things that were much more profound than Freemasonry. And, I kind of roll with that shit a lot. I fuck with it, sue me. Shoot me in the head. I don't give a fuck, bitch. I don't give a fuck. I stand on business. I'm a warrior. What are you going to do, you fucking lispy little bitch? Nothing. Anyway, guys. The Sufi Freemasons, gonna call it there.